name's Derek. I'm with Stagehand, and this is another one of our episodes in a series we're calling Backstage with Stagehand. And today I'm thrilled to be joined by Lisa Jacobs. I've seen Lisa on stage many times with many different musicians, and so I'm excited to actually have an opportunity to talk to you. Just real quickly, Stagehand is, we're a technology company, and we're focused on really innovating on the local music scene. And obviously in a pandemic, live music is really all about local music. And so that's an area that we believe is just really, there's so much talent and so much opportunity there.
Yeah.
And so we've been iterating on a number of different angles. And so I love having the opportunity to talk to musicians, talk to club owners, talk to people in the industry. So it's great to have you.
Oh man, I'm so happy to be here. I love that you're interviewing like local musicians, and I've been seeing you guys literally everywhere. So you guys are having a huge impact, especially right now when everything's kind of taking a turn for weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. It does feel like we're starting to see more and more opportunities in the local space.
Absolutely. Actually, and as a musician, I'm so grateful for you and for what you're doing.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
great.
and for all the work that you've put into this and for starting up something like this and finding ways for us to make money and play shows and get our music out there. It's so valuable.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, let's jump into it. I always like to just start with, how did this start for you? Like, when did you become a musician, and how did you get into it and stuff like that?
Okay. So I started playing music really young. I come from a musical family. My dad's a professional musician in the city.
wow.
Yeah, he plays guitar and sings, and
He's here in Calgary as well? Okay.
kind of plays blues, R&B. Yeah.
Cool.
He immigrated from India a lot of years ago, and then just like has been playing here. So I started playing piano when I was like 2 or 3. So piano is my first instrument. Did Royal Conservatory and then learned how to play by ear as well. And then when I was like, we played a little bit of guitar. My dad, of course, taught us how to play a bit of guitar, and like Tequila was probably the first song I learned how to play on it. This is super appropriate for a small child. And then when I was 10, we had this like wall of guitars in our basement, and one of them was bigger than the other. And so I asked my dad, you know, because that guitar stuck out, I asked him what it was. He said it was a bass guitar and asked me if I wanted to try it. And I was like, sure. And when my dad tells the story, he likes to say he put it on me. And of course, like I was super small. And so he placed the bass on me and I went, you know, just like fell with the weight. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I was very strong. But yeah, you know, my dad taught me how to play, and we played blues. So I learned how to play like boogie bass lines. My hands were so small, and I was like they were so, I guess, weak, obviously, that I would have to play with 2 fingers. But nobody told me that I was too small to play bass. I'm like, this was a full-size precision. I still play that bass, that first bass that my dad, that red and black bass that I play all the time.
The one you were playing just this last weekend?
At the show, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's the bass I got when I was 10. And so I used to actually play with 2 fingers to hold down 1 string. And so it would kind of be like, you play all the songs like that, just to make it work. Because I mean, you just figure out whatever you're going to do to make sound happen. And so sometimes when I'm tired, if you watch my hands, I'll drag my fingers around the string like that, and it looks like a claw playing the bass.
I don't think I've ever seen you looking tired on stage.
Oh, it happens. You can tell by the way my fingers look like just a mitt playing bass guitar.
So you started at a very young age.
I did.
Bass at age 10. And then did you keep on with some of the other instruments?
Yeah, so I mean, I've just continued playing piano because I loved it. I worked through all my brother's piano books because my parents couldn't afford to put us through piano lessons anymore, and so I just like loved that and continued to play that. And you know, I played on bass. My sister and I were in a band, family band with my dad, and we played the Calgary Blues Festival for like the whole week. We had gigs, and she was 11 and I was 12.
Okay, wow.
I know. We sang background vocals. I had hair down to my waist. I was so embarrassed about the whole thing when I was a kid, and for many years. But now when I look back on it, it was very cool. Yeah, and then I had opportunities to play in church, and then I played at school. So I just had like tons of places to play bass. And then I started, so I've been gigging basically professionally since I was 12, which is kind of wild.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I started playing in bars when I was underage a little bit. Yeah, it was funny because I was a music director at this church, and I would finish like a Wednesday night, like youth service, and then I would go play this like super seedy bar. It would start at like 10:30, we'd play till like 2:30 in the morning, and like it was like the kind of place where pimps and prostitutes were like taking their breaks, or what, I don't know what to call it. They would hang out in between sessions.
Yeah, in between gigs.
Yeah, in between gigs. I saw like my first like brawl, like bar fight on the dance floor. We had to stop playing.
Was there chicken wire in front of the
there
stage?
There wasn't, but there probably should have been. And I would like pack up all my gear. I'd get home at like 3 in the morning, and then I'd go to my like 8 a.m. English university class. It was it was a funny life. But yeah, life has kind of just been like a mix of like weird things like that. And then I got my degree in music therapy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I do that as well.
UFC?
No, they don't have that program here. I had to go out to Vancouver, so I lived in Vancouver for a couple of years. And because of my music therapy degree, I learned how to play and got better at acoustic guitar, because I didn't really stick with that one, but then I need it for this job, so I play acoustic guitar as well. And I play electric too, but it's the worst of all the instruments I play by far.
So did you ever, so music therapy, obviously you studied that. Did you ever think about plan to do that full time, or was that how like did you always plan to want to be a gigging musician, I guess is?
You know, I didn't have tons of plans. I just loved playing music, and I found that I was really interested in people and psychology, and so I kind of did that. And I found I could get a degree in music therapy, and you know, I paid my way through university through gigging, and so that never kind of stopped. But I got in trouble when I was in university because I was always leaving on the weekends and flying out to shows. And so they were like, "You're not going to graduate." I was like, "I'm definitely going to graduate." But I was pretty divided all the time. And so when I moved to Calgary, I moved back to Calgary and I got a job here as a music therapist, and I tried to really focus and just do music therapy and just do the one thing. And I loved that, but it wasn't enough for me. I needed to perform with my peers and play music with my peers and be a performer, because music therapy is really, really different than performing. And so I have always done both, and I literally need both to be a functioning human in society. And it's been really interesting. I really feel fortunate that I have both, because the music industry is not always a very easy place to be and to be in for a really long time. And it can be really hard on your soul. You know, there's a lot of ups and downs in it. It's amazing, but it's also tricky. And so I have found that I've been able to maintain some balance. I'm working in music therapy. I work with people who kind of exist on the fringe of society, people with disabilities, people who have acquired brain injuries, so like us, but got in a car accident and now their whole life has changed, or had a stroke, you know. And I worked in a maximum security prison for a little while doing music there with inmates.
Must have been interesting.
That was wild. Yeah, and so I get to create and experience and witness and you know, befriend in some ways people I would normally never encounter, and see the way that they navigate the world. And man, it keeps me grounded. Man, it keeps me connected to like some of the real things that matter, because it's easy to lose sight in the music industry of what really matters. Yeah, because it's a weird world, man. And people care about weird things in the music industry, and when you're a woman, people care about even weirder things. So yeah, so I think that I have always needed a balance, and sometimes my life is way more performance and sometimes it's more therapy, but I need both of those things. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now I know that you've recently come on, you know, before COVID, you were on tour with We Will Rock You.
I was.
Tell me about that. I'd love to hear about that, because I'm a big Queen fan.
Okay. Yes. So 6 months touring North America. There was a bunch of us. I can't even remember now how many. We had 3 tour buses. So a lot. Like 36 people. And so actors, and then we had a 5-piece band, which was awesome. We played the show live, and I got to play all John Deacon's bass lines, and it was wild. So I wasn't even sure if I was going to be capable of this kind of show, because it's the kind of show where you play the exact same thing every single night. And we did 112 shows in 6 months, plus we did rehearsals, plus I learned all the songs beforehand. So I played those songs exactly the same for a very long time. And I'm the kind of player that like I love to be spontaneous in the moment and feel what's happening and change things up. And so that show was a completely other kind of discipline.
So they don't want any of that. They want you to play it like it's written.
Yeah, and like the art of it is capturing the fire of it by playing exactly what they created, because they selected studio versions and live versions of all of those parts. So my bass parts were just the best of what John Deacon had created live and in the studio.
So it was a bit of a mashup.
Totally, you know, and they put a lot of thought, and it's very important to like bring those things that they wanted to come across, specifically bring that to life. But that was hard for me, and it ended up being an incredible discipline. And fortunately for me, John Deacon wrote all these bass parts that were super melodic, and then some that were like, you know, like Another One Bites the Dust. It's really like just straight up groovy. But the rest of it was like really weird and all over the neck and challenging, and so it kept the music alive for me.
Did you get to meet any of the band members as part of it?
We didn't.
No.
But we got some like video messages from people, which was really cool. It's kind of like wish us good luck on the opening tour, and we played the theater in Madison Square Garden, so we got like a cool thing when we were in New York from the guys.
That's awesome.
It was neat.
Yeah,
it was an incredible experience for sure.
So you said 112 shows? So was that pretty exhausting? Were you tired by the end of that, or was it so invigorating playing that type of show?
Yeah, I was tired. I think everyone was a bit tired by the very end of it, but tired for different reasons. So 6 months is a long time to be on the road. And I was, by the very last 5 shows, I was ready to unleash some different unleash my own creativity in the mix of all of that. But it was also not tiring in ways that other tours have been, because I only had one job, and that was just to play bass. So I didn't even, and like to take my bass guitar out of my bass case. But everything was brought in. I didn't have to music direct. I wasn't driving. I didn't have to like tour manage. I didn't have to play multiple instruments. I just, you know, like I didn't have to set up the green room. I didn't have to talk to people or do merch. All the other things that I do in all of my other jobs, oftentimes, you know, as a musician, you often have other jobs, and part of that, especially if you're an artist too. And so I didn't have to do any of that. I just showed up and played bass. I had like a sound check at 3 p.m. I didn't have to learn any material. I just played the same show. So that I memorized. So it was, so there was elements of it that were super easy.
Yeah, and how did you get involved? Did you audition for that, or were you recruited?
I didn't, I got recruited. So the music director who put the show, who put the band together, is Russell Broom. He's an icon in Calgary. And so he pulled together the musicians that he thought would work well and would serve the show well.
That's great.
Yeah, it was an honor.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And is that going to pick up again? Is there a plan to pick that? That didn't stop because of COVID, right?
No, we finished the tour. Yeah, we finished the tour, and then I got to do this awesome recording session for a week, and like just be creative, which was awesome. And then everything shut down. But yeah, they have plans for it for 2021, and then so that's just all up in the air still.
Cool. So you've done a lot of stuff. We're talking about starting from a very young age and playing with your family up to playing We Will Rock You and bigger stadiums, big venues. Any particular memories that just stand out for you? Something that you go, oh wow, I'm going to remember that for some reason. Sometimes it's for the weirdest reasons. Anything?
Okay, so can I tell you 2 stories?
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of them, so I'll tell you the first one actually as a music therapist. Because it's so entwined in what I do. And I was working with this teenager who has cerebral palsy. So his brain's totally intact, but it's just taking his body like a while to figure out what's going on. So his speech is impaired and slowed down, and his hands don't respond, but his dad's a musician, and he wanted to just do some music. And so he came in, and his mom and dad weren't really sure, of anything that was gonna happen. And I was like, we're gonna write some music, and I'm gonna teach you some stuff on the guitar. But his hands aren't quite working, but I taught him how to play gonk, 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 just like that simple blues bass line. And we wrote this song, and he's a teenage boy, so he's having girl trouble. So we wrote I think it was called Bad Girl or something, something hilarious like that. Yeah. And so the company that I contracted to, this music therapy company, they had a performance for their clients, and we got up and performed, and he's got this cool hat on and a leather jacket, he's got his guitar, and we get up there, and no one knows what to expect. And they don't know that his parents don't know that we've worked on this. And so we get up, And we're like, I met a bad, bad girl. She's no good to me, yo. And we're both trading off the lyrics, and he's making them up, some of them, and they're super funny because he's very witty. And so everyone's laughing, and he's like taking guitar solo, which is just kind of him mucking around on the guitar, which is cool. But it was great. It was awesome. And his parents came up afterwards, and they told me, like, I mean, they were like, they'd been crying the entire time, and they just were like, we just had no idea, and we certainly didn't expect that this would happen at all. And they hadn't really seen this particular side of their kid before, and they were so moved. And I just loved to be able to be a part of people seeing him differently, and people being able to witness even more of what he's capable as a young man, you know, and even more of what he has to contribute to the world. And
so cool.
And being able to use music, something that he loves, as an avenue for him to be able to express that way. So that's part of like why I love music therapy. Obviously, I light up when I talk about it.
Such a connection between music and the emotions, and I don't know if we've really talked about this, but we were working on a music program at the airport, and people travel for many different reasons, and oftentimes for sad reasons.
Absolutely.
And some of the stories that came back from the airport from some of the performers that for some reason had just touched a traveler who might have been traveling for a funeral or to visit somebody in the hospital, and boy, there's some powerful, really interesting stories. That's cool.
Absolutely.
You said you had two.
Okay, so the second one's as a performer. So I had the crazy opportunity to play guitar, like acoustic guitar, for Jan Arden.
Oh, wow.
It was a very like poop your pants sort of experience because, like I said earlier, the guitar is like my least good instrument.
Yeah.
Least good. But we were playing for the Grandstand show, so there's like thousands of people there every night, and she was the host, and one of the songs that we did of hers was Insensitive, and it was the only acoustic show in the song, so there was just myself and a fiddle player and Jan, and the fiddle player and I sang background vocals, and I played guitar, and we played Insensitive, which was a huge hit, you know, like in the 90s, and we would play it, and there's just like this mood and energy, and the crowd would sing along, and there's thousands of people there, and they would all sing the words, and you could see sometimes people would be crying, and I just was like, what is even happening? Because, and kind of like people would be sending me these stories like via the internet, or sometimes stop me on the streets, and they would tell me their story in connection to the song Insensitive, and the different kinds of times, the time in the life that they were in when that song was there, and how meaningful it was to them. And so all of a sudden, you know, I'm like a sideman here in this situation, but I got to tap into people's connection to Jan and how her music has helped their lives, and I got to be like a small part of that, and so that was like such an incredible experience, you know, and to be a part of that story and to get to witness other people's stories. Yeah. So one of the things that I composed that was very special was this bass arrangement. So the duo Jocelyn and Lisa was primarily both bass and vocal, which was like super weird. And very early on when we started playing, you know, Jocelyn's pretty headstrong, and we got this opportunity to play on, I think it was breakfast television, and they wanted us to do a Christmas song. And so the only Christmas song that she would sing and kind of knew was "Oh Holy Night." And so I was like, here, let's do something else. Like I have some bass parts, like we do something really funky. And she's like, no, we're doing "Oh Holy Night." And I was like, well, I'm not playing piano on TV. And she's like, well, I'm only singing "Oh Holy Night." And and so literally the day before we were supposed to be on air, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to give in to this, and I'm like, and I refuse to play piano. So I came up with a bass, like a chordal bass rendition of "Oh Holy Night," which is still like the thing that I think is like the greatest thing I've ever created on bass, because it's super weird. But I like we put together something, and it worked out. And so we played it, and we ended up recording it. We've played it in a bunch of different places, but it ended up having this really cool thing happen where. I had this dream one night that Joss and I were like just in the light together, and we were playing "Oh Holy Night," just bass and just vocals, and there was just thousands and thousands of people there. And I forgot about this dream. Fast forward 1 year later, and Joss and I are in New York, and we're playing, we're like the major underdogs, but we're playing this huge like Christmas show with major acts. And so there's like I don't know, like 17,000 people there or something. And we put together a set, and we're getting ready to go on stage to play the set. And she goes, oh my God, she's like, we have to play Oh Holy Night. And
so this is just before you're going
yeah,
on.
just before we're going. I was like, what? And it's the beginning of December. I haven't played the song. We haven't played the song yet. She's like, yeah, like, what are we doing? Why aren't we playing that song? And I was like, yeah, we must play this song. It's a Christmas show. And so we play like our set, and we finish the set with just the two of us playing Oh Holy Night, and there's 17,000 people there. Anyways, it was this whole amazing experience. And when we get off stage, and I'd been doing 8 million things, because in that band I'm like the tour manager and the music director and all the extra stuff. And so I'm just like, and we were kind of sitting in the dressing room, and she turns to me and she goes, Lisa, she's like, do you remember that you had a dream about this moment, us playing Oh Holy Night in front of thousands of people?
Premonition.
And I was like, no, dude, I forgot about that. And then I just like took it in
even
for a
told her
second.
about
I had
the
told
dream.
her about it, yeah. And she remembers, she's good at remembering stuff like that, and I'm terrible. And I was like, oh my God, that like dream I had, and it wasn't like a dream, it was like literally like at nighttime when you're asleep kind of dream.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that dream came true. That was crazy. Yeah. And I remember we just looked at each other, because we had, you know, we had been struggling, like not just struggling, but we'd been like hustling and playing shows and doing all of this stuff. And then who knows, like you don't know what your life's going to be like in the music industry. And then we had this like incredible moment, and I had somehow dreamed it up before, and the song had been birthed out of anger and spite, actually. The bass arrangement was definitely birthed out of spite, because I was like, she's not going to sing any other song than Oh Holy Night, then we're playing it on bass, and it's going to be weird, you know? And it turned into this like incredible moment, you know?
Wow.
And like I said earlier, like you can't really dream up things, but I had that weird moment where I ended up dreaming that, and it turned out to be true. And we looked at each other in that moment, and we both realized that it had happened for like real in real life, and we just like started crying, because we were like,
Wow, that's so cool.
yeah, what the heck. So anyways.
We've been talking most about with you on stage, but I think we're all both, we love to listen to music, and some of us are talented enough to be able to play music on a regular basis. But tell me about maybe some shows that you've seen that have, maybe we can talk about it both locally and not locally, like maybe a big show. Why don't we why don't we start with a big show that you've seen? Any particular memories that stand out for you there?
Yes. Oh my God, I have such a good story. So Prince was here a couple of years ago, and he played at the Saddle Dome and gave like a 2-hour-long concert. And prior to that, like on the day of the concert, I got this message from my buddy in Saskatoon, and he was like, my musician friend who's like super obsessed with Prince, he's like, Prince does these after parties, and there's supposed to be one happening in Calgary. And I was like, what? So Prince is notorious for doing these after parties. Sometimes after his concert, he doesn't announce them, and he gives all the money to charity, of some charity that he chooses.
So
and
will you typically come to a club or something like that, or maybe?
Yeah, it's all kinds of weird things. Who knows? Like people just don't know. They're just like these surprise concerts. So it might be a club. And in this case, it was supposed to be at this sushi restaurant.
Okay.
And so I like kind of looked it up. It looked super sketchy and not legit, but I was like, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. But you know, I know the guy that might possibly be doing sound for it. So I'm just going to buy some tickets. So I got a ticket for me and like my friend who I was going to see the concert with. And I was like, ugh. So Prince does like maybe a 2 to 3 hour long concert at the Saddle Dome, and I was like, there's not going to be an after party after this. But I still showed up at the restaurant. It's just a restaurant. Yeah. And I went in, there's like barely anybody there. It's like basically empty. It's like 11 o'clock at night, maybe later, maybe 12. But I see Prince's Telecaster, his guitar, on the stage. But the stage isn't a stage. They just moved some tables out of the way. It's literally the carpeted floor of the restaurant. That's the stage. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well maybe Prince is gonna show up, who knows? So it's like 12 o'clock, no Prince, nothing's happening. And then Prince's band gets out. And Prince's band is just like a compilation of like masterful musicians. And like John Blackwell, the drummer, is there. Maceo Parker, who like played with Miles Davis, he's like an icon, he's there. And the rest of his whole band. And they start playing. There's like 50 of us, just 50 of us. And they do this whole show. Like they play for like an hour and a half. And it is incredible. It's so good. And then all of a sudden, I'm like just looking, and I'm 10 feet away from the stage, and I'm standing on top of these like the bench seat of the restaurant. I'm 10 feet away from the stage. It was crazy. And then all of a sudden, Prince kind of like sneaks on, and all of a sudden he's playing keyboards. Wow. They don't even like announce him. He's just like all of a sudden happens to be playing keyboards. And everyone in his band sings, and all basically front people. So it's killer. And then all of a sudden he puts on his bass guitar. And I'm like 10 feet away from Prince playing bass. And he's leading the band, but he's just standing in the corner, like by a curtain beside a window, hiding essentially, playing. And it was actually one of the most incredible bass experiences I've ever seen. And it reminded me so much of like what the bass player's role is and kind of who Prince is that you never would have imagined. And he was leading everybody, but his way of leading was to make every single other person in his band shine. And so he would set up these and they were like live communicating. They were doing like live arrangements of whatever was going on. He's dictating who's taking the solo and what's happening, and he made everybody else look amazing. Yeah. And I just thought that was so brilliant and so incredible and not what you would be expecting of Prince. Yeah. Because there's so many other kinds of stories about who he is. Yeah. And then finally he got on the microphone and started singing, and it was outrageous. It was so wild. And so they play for like 2 hours. Again, after a 3-hour concert. Yeah. Wow. And it's like, 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, and it's so late. And so they pack up and we like freak out, and it's so great, and we're like cheering for them, but we're not expecting an encore or anything because obviously they've been playing for like 4 hours total. And so most people leave, and I'm like standing by Prince's guitar pedals on the carpeted floor of the sushi restaurant, looking at his guitar pedals and just kind of like checking it out. And then all of a sudden people start coming back on stage, and I'm like, no, they're just coming to pack up their gear. They get back on the stage and start playing, and now Prince's microphone is here, and he's here. His guitar pedals are here, and I'm like right in front of him. And they start playing more songs. Like at this point, Maceo Parker, who's quite elderly, is like sleeping. Like he's sat down and his back is leaned to get up against the wall. He's like fallen asleep in one of the songs, because he's just resting his eyes because it's like 2:30 in the morning. Yeah. And like I'm standing like right in front of Prince, and he sings The Most Beautiful Girl in the World. And I know that he was singing it to me because he's here and I'm here. And even though he had sunglasses on, so I couldn't quite tell, I know it was for me. So that was like the craziest thing ever. And almost everyone, there's only 50 people there, and like half of those people were musicians. Wow. And we all like got to be a part of this insane experience. And then I was actually, when Prince died, this is crazy too. I was in New York. I had just finished playing a bunch of shows in New York, and I was in the airport, and I was super hungover, and I had like my bass on my back, and there's like this announcement in the airport that Prince has passed away, or like something's wrong with Prince and maybe he's passed away, they're not sure. Yeah. I was like, what's going on? And it turned out that Prince had died, and I was like just stunned. And they like play Purple Rain over the intercom, over the speakers, and I ended up hungover and a little extra emotional, and this big event happened, and I'm like crying, and everyone's staring at me because I have like this bass on my back, and like people always tell me like I should have been in Prince's band, and I'm like just bawling my face off. And it turns out that I have, I'm stopping in Minneapolis on my way home, and I have like a layover there for like a little bit, and I land there, and I get this call from CBC while I'm still on the airplane, and they're like, hey, do you want to come in and do an interview? And I'm like, well, I'm in Minneapolis right now, but I'm home like tonight, and I'll come tomorrow morning. They're like, yeah, come in. And so I jump on the train with my bag and my like bass, and I take the train from the airport downtown, because I know where the club is, where like the iconic club from Purple Rain is, and I'm like, I'm gonna go see it, and I just wanna go pay tribute to Prince and then get back on the airplane, because like, what are the odds of this happening, right? Yeah. And so I get on the train, I land downtown. The moment I step off the train, the clouds like gather, and it starts pouring rain, like torrential rain, like all of my stuff gets drenched. Oh no. And I'm like running through the streets in torrential rain, and I show up in front of First Ave, the club, and there's like a couple of people gathered around, and I got to like look at a star and like look at the building and just like take a moment in front of this place and just like honor this music legend. Wow. And then literally like run back, jump on a plane, and get home. And so I took like some footage of it and everything, and it was just crazy.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
It was so
just worked out that way.
It was so crazy, yeah. And then I got to talk about the whole experience on CBC the next morning.
Is that what CBC wanted to interview you about? Prince's
No, they
passing, or
wanted
something completely different.
Well, because Prince passed, and then they had found out, or they had heard, they had heard from someone about that after party story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like CBC's been very good to me over the years. Like, you know, they've had us on, Joss and I on there, and me on there for a bunch of different things, and so they just reached out to hear this story. But then I have this whole other story too, because I'm in Minneapolis. What are the odds?
Well, you had to do it. You know, we've got a great local music scene. We've touched on that already. But tell me about one of your favorite music venues in town.
Oh, that's so easy. My favorite music venue in Calgary. I don't know. Actually, the banner's probably not on the video, but
I'm not sure if it is.
It's the Ironwood. We're literally like sitting here on the stage right now, filming this. But this is the best music venue in the city. And part of why it's the best is that, it's for original music, and Pat, the owner, really values that. And he doesn't dictate too much of like how you have to do your show or how many sets it has to be and how long. You know, like they have like kind of some parameters, but you can really create your own original show here. Also, like it takes a bit of work to be able to play at this venue. You know, not everybody gets to be in here, and so it's extra special that way. But the best part about the Ironwood is that it's a listening venue primarily. Right. And so when people come here, there's an expectation that they're, going to be listening to the show. And so it just gives voice to an entirely different kind of show that you can play here compared to anywhere else. And so you can tell stories, and you can have like a lot more banter, and people really like get into and can appreciate some of the nuances of what you're doing. So I have had some like super transformative experiences here, and I've played with a ton of different kinds of setups, ton of different kinds of bands. But for Jocelyn and I, this would be one of the places that really sort of like secured and cemented us as, and like filled our souls and gave us confidence when we really needed it to just kind of like keep going in an industry where we'd already been like going for a long time. And we would play shows at the Ironwood, and and like sell out this place, just the two of us. It was crazy. And we would tell jokes. Like people would come and be like, you guys are like a stand-up routine, you know? And I was like, because we're basically opposite people, you know, we even look opposite, and our kind of gimmick was that we were. And she's like kind of funny and outrageous and unpredictable, and I'm always giving her trouble, you know, she's always giving me trouble, and I'm always like, I'm like the straight guy. Is that in acting? The straight man? The straight person? Yeah. That was my role, you know? And so, but we played shows here where we just like cried, or like where people would give us standing ovation, and we just like didn't even know that we needed people. We just needed the response for people to care about the music or to have heard our music and have that kind of like fill our soul. So this place has given us that opportunity over and over again. Yeah. I mean, I think our record is still like behind the bar, some like on the wall.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So what else excites you about the local music scene? Like maybe we can, to wrap it up here, like any other, you talked about the fact that Calgary's a great place to be. We're fortunate that there's been corporate money here, which gives musicians an opportunity to earn. But anything else that just kind of excites you and gives you hope about the local music scene?
Yes, the people.
Yeah. They're great, aren't they?
And just kind of, watching some of the young artists that are coming up and the emerging artists, it is incredible. Their skill, their hunger, their desire, the music they're writing already at a young age. Like I was out at OCL Studios watching, some young people in high school record their first album, and it was so cool to hear what they're doing and to even see that they have such an incredible opportunity to record in this like a major, incredible recording studio.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
When I was like 14, no one was doing that. And so, and there's just all these incredible programs like the National Music Center. Jory Kinjo and I, developed a program for some young artists there, and we got to actually be a part of the Jam Club program they have there. And so there's all this stuff happening here. Yeah. And I once heard Mayor Nenshi talk a long time ago about, I guess pre-pandemic, but like it was years ago, and I appreciated this so much. He said something about if you have money, you can kind of invest it in anything and create this kind of city that you want it to be. And so why not invest it in the arts and have this be an artistic city? And I just remember being like, yeah, that's brilliant. And kind of have been watching the ways that the community in the city of Calgary and Alberta has, there's a lot of cuts happening, and there's all sorts of things that are super not great for the creative community. But people are also rising up and wanting to contribute, and there's these grant programs and there's other stuff that are happening. And I mean, even watching the overwhelming response toward people not wanting to lose and wanting to save the ironwood,
Wasn't that incredible? It was just, that blew
it was
my
too
mind.
much.
It was just beyond all expectations.
We couldn't even fathom it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just excited because there are people here that care about music and care about the arts and are willing to work at it. And there's so many cool young people coming up. I'm so excited.
Well, maybe that's a great way to wrap it up, because I couldn't agree more. I mean, we talked a little bit before that this is really kind of a second career for me. And one of the things that I've genuinely enjoyed is getting to know the people in the scene. I mean, there's so many characters, there's so many people with so many interesting stories, so many people like yourself, like Pat, that really love what they do. And that comes through. So so I've enjoyed this. I enjoyed the conversation. I thank you for joining me, sharing your story.
Oh my gosh.
And I look forward to seeing you on stage again sometime soon.
Yeah, very soon.
All right, take care.
Cheers.